Some JRPGs play it safe with their storytelling. Not these JRPGs. Hey, it's Just the Gems. I'm Brandon. I love a good story, and that's why JRPGs are my favorite genre. There are just so many interesting and outside-the-box stories told in these games. Stories that you're just not going to find in a Western-style game or in regular old TV and movies. But occasionally, a JRPG will step even further outside of the box to tell a story that is just plain crazy. Those are the games I want to talk about today. The games where nobody was keeping tabs on the writer, making sure their mental health was okay, and that they weren't writing the most bonker plots gaming has ever seen. These are the 10 weirdest I could think of, but if you have others that you think are even weirder, let me know in the comments. And don't worry about spoilers. I'll be keeping this vague enough that if you know, you'll know, and if you don't know, you should be just fine. All right, let's get into it. Any list like this that's being honest with itself has to put the Kingdom Hearts series in a prominent place. What started as the most bizarre bedfellows in gaming history has transformed into one of the most complex and completely out there stories ever told in any medium. Kingdom Hearts is the story of Sora, a young kid living in harmony with his friends Riku and Kairi. Everything's great until one day when a bunch of creatures called Heartless show up and ruin everything. Sora gets his hands on the Keyblade, which is exactly what it sounds like, however ridiculous you might think that is. Suddenly, Sora finds himself on an adventure traveling through multiple worlds, most of which are straight out of Disney movies. I could stop right there and you'd already have the weirdest story ever conceived, but Square Enix kept the weird coming. The plot of the broader Kingdom Hearts universe of games has continued expanding with each new entry, creating a complex web of interrelated characters and histories and sort of evil clones. They're not evil clones. They're like, look, I don't know how to explain this series in just a few hundred words. It's probably impossible. But you get to run around with Goofy and Donald Duck, and Mickey occasionally shows up looking like a badass. So even if you're not able to follow the intricate story, there's still a lot of really cool stuff for you in Kingdom Hearts. After the world is destroyed, 8 people wake up on a mysterious island. And then 13 days later, they die. But that's all right, because they're quickly reborn as children, who then spend the next 13 days growing and dying again, and again, and again. This is Zanki Zero Last Beginning from Spike Chunsoft, a sort of survival dungeon crawler visual novel that combines the intricate RPG gameplay of something like Etrian Odyssey with the whacked out storytelling of Danganronpa. Each of your characters passes through all the stages of life in just under 2 weeks, and their age directly impacts their abilities in combat. An old grandpa is going to have a hard time moving around quickly, and a little kid probably can't handle giant weapons, just as 2 examples. From their home base called Garage Island, the 8 survivors find new ruins that float out to them on a regular basis. Exploring these ruins reveals more truths about the world and about themselves. Given that this is coming from some of the creators of Danganronpa, you'd probably expect this game would have a fairly manic energy, and that is 100% a correct assumption. The survivors receive instructions from these bizarre videos starring a little boy and a chibi-fied sheep, modeled after something resembling those 1950s educational films, which fits in with this weird aesthetic perfectly. The plot goes to some incredibly dark places, tackling extremely heavy and taboo themes while still maintaining its ridiculous sense of humor at all times. This is an essential game for weird story lovers, and if you find the survival gameplay too challenging, well, you can turn off most of that challenge and just enjoy this as essentially a wacky visual novel. There's really no reason not to give it a try. So, this new anti-aging drug releases onto the market, and before you know it, the world has ended. Eternights is its name, and it's responsible for turning everyone into zombies. Well, everyone except for our main character and his friends. Now, your MC and his crew have to ride a crazy train through the wreckage of society to try and save what remains from a conflict between ancient gods. So what is it, a zombie story or some Lovecraftian tale of incomprehensible evil? Why not both? Eternights is an action RPG dating simulator. When you're not busy fighting your way through the ruins of civilization, you're trying to romance one of 4 possible soulmates. You might think romance would be the last thing on anyone's mind, given the circumstances, but you would be wrong. The joy of Eternights can be found in a few different aspects. One of them is the combat, which takes a lot of getting used to, but once it clicks, It clicks good. Another would be the writing. It's funny and dark and mysterious, and I love how so much about the broader plot is only hinted at, leaving your imagination to work overtime to fill in the gaps. Like, somehow these flashes you see of unearthly creatures must tie into the story being told, but the game won't just come out and tell you how. It trusts you to be able to infer a lot, and the rest is there for you to theorize on if you want. Each of the potential love interests have very distinct personalities, and they each bring a lot to other aspects of the game too, including the combat. Also, you get your arm cut off at the beginning of the game and it's replaced with a glowing sword. That is pretty cool. This is a really underrated gem, and if you let it get its hooks in you, you're in for a really wild experience. You might have heard of Chrono Trigger. Maybe you've even played it. I think, demographically speaking, if you're watching my channel, there's a very, very good chance that one of those things is true. Chrono Trigger is a fun-filled romp through time with a bunch of young heroes banding together to save the world from a destructive force, and they all live happily ever after, at least until the events of Chrono Cross. As a sequel, Chrono Cross veers pretty heavily in a different direction from its predecessor. While it still has some of the original's goofy charm, there's a lot more emphasis on dark twists and unhappy endings. If Chrono Trigger's view of time travel was one of pure optimism, Chrono Cross takes the perspective of meddling with time has consequences. It does this by minimizing the time travel aspect of the storytelling and instead focusing in on the concept of different dimensions. The main character of Chrono Cross is a boy named Serge, who one day ventures out from his village only to return and find that no one knows who he is. His mother is gone and nobody has ever met him. The most anyone can say is that he reminds them of a boy they knew who died a long time ago. Serge climbs a cliff and finds a grave with his name on it, and there he's attacked by some knights who call him a ghost, and he's saved by a girl with perhaps the craziest connection to the previous game you could possibly imagine. Actually, I take that back. You couldn't imagine it. It's unimaginable. It's so far out there that, frankly, I'm surprised I was ever able to make sense of the plot. Chrono Cross is a mind melter of a game. It's essentially the creator's attempt to resolve one loose thread from Chrono Trigger, but they managed to turn it into a dimension-hopping, brain-busting drama full of weird characters, ancient dragons, and some of the most unique gameplay ever to be found in a JRPG. You probably never would have imagined all the crap that happens after the events of Chrono Trigger, but despite being incredibly out there, it manages to be a dark and compelling story from start to finish. You just might have to play it a few times to fully understand it. Blue Reflection is the story of a high school ballerina who loses her ability to dance because of an injury. Then she becomes a magical girl, which is great for her because lo and behold, she's able to dance again thanks to her newfound powers. If this was where it ended, Blue Reflection would just be a corny but heartfelt teen drama about a girl rediscovering her love of dance and making new friends during the most transformative period of her life. But Blue Reflection adds a pinch of the uncanny to the recipe, which changes everything into a weird trip. Hinako is the aforementioned ballerina, and she's recruited as a reflector by her two new friends, Yuzu and Lime. They need her help for two reasons. For one, the emotions of their classmates are going wild and being influenced by the common, which is a dimension that is essentially the collective unconscious, a realm where everyone's thoughts and feelings sort of commingle and where evil forces are able to use them to manipulate people in the real world. That's not even the weird part, though. The weird part involves the Sephiroth. These are horrific creatures intent on destroying the world that can only be defeated by the reflectors. Blue Reflection is a great example of how sudden and drastic tonal shifts can make a more straightforward story feel even weirder by contrasting the bits of normalcy with the bits of deeply uncanny bizarreness. The magical girl elements, the running around the common, saving people from succumbing to their overpowered emotions, that all ends up feeling pretty normal when put face to face with the Sephiroth. It elevates the storytelling to new heights, particularly when the motives of Yuzu and Lime bringing Hinako into the fold start to be called into question. This is a real hidden gem, and even though its sequel gets praised for being much better, praise that I also have shared, this one is still worth checking out for its wild story alone. Everyone talks about how great Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is, but you don't often hear about how friggin' messed up the whole thing is. Expedition 33 is the story of a world where every year some gigantic goddess paints a number on a monolith, and everyone who is the same age as that number dies. There have been dozens of expeditions at this point, with brave souls venturing out to try and stop her from mass murdering their entire society, but they've all failed. The titular Expedition 33 begins with a bang, with those brave 33-year-olds setting out to try and succeed where literally everyone else has failed, and it doesn't take long before the ridiculous powers that be put them solidly in their place. The opening hour of this game is so twisted and dark, and at the same time so beautiful and heartfelt that it'll give you emotional whiplash. And that consistent jerking around of your emotions continues all the way until the very end, when you as the player are given a choice, possibly the most difficult and painful choice ever presented to a player in a video game. You'll fall in love with the characters, and even the messed up world starts to feel like home as you make your way through it. It's funny, it's sad, it's complicated and beautiful. It's hard to overstate how masterful the storytelling is in Expedition 33. If you haven't tried it yet, you should make it a priority this year. You could make an argument for putting the entire Trails series at large on this list, though that would mean breaking the rules a bit, which I guess would be fine, since it's my list and I'm making the rules. And what am I going to do, call the police on myself? I doubt I could even get them to come for something as stupid as I broke my own stupid rules on my silly video. They're busy. But I digress. Trails has some extremely out there plot developments, and the world of Trails at large is one giant puzzle box mystery that's gradually opened as the series progresses. But I'm going way back to the third entry to present what I would say is probably the most unhinged story in the entire series. Trails in the Sky the Third, I'm guessing they might rename it Trails in the Sky Third Chapter if and when we get a remake, but it's a very different sort of Trails game. Instead of following the characters on a journey through the physical world, you're instead trapped in something akin to a simulation, wherein you're able to relive events from different characters' lives. And without putting too fine a point on it, some of the character stories are, let's just say they're extremely dark. Ren in particular. She's a hugely popular character that gets introduced in Trails in the Sky second chapter, and she plays an important role in the series, but most of us were just not ready to learn about her history. It's messed up. But there are other extremely messed up stories revealed here too, including the one about the nation of Northumbria that had its citizens turned into pillars of salt by some gigantic tower that suddenly and seemingly randomly appeared in the middle of their country one day. Trails in the Sky third chapter does a great job of fleshing out the cast and laying the groundwork for the future of the franchise, and I really do hope Falcom plans to remake it. It's not an optional game by any means. It's absolutely vital to the life of the series. Final Fantasy XIII feels like what would happen if you put some writers in a room, gave them all sorts of mind-altering substances, and said, the guardrails are off, write about whatever you want. Now, I know that Japan is really strongly against a lot of mind-altering substances, so this probably isn't what actually happened, but I do have a hard time imagining a writer just coming up with some of this stuff without assistance. The game takes place in a world that's split between the sky and the ground. An advanced society lives in the floating land of Cocoon, while the vast world of Grand Pulse lies below. A lot of the plot revolves around the fal'Cie, an ancient race, I don't know if that's the right word, an ancient race of higher beings that possibly created everything and are extremely mysterious. There are actually opposing teams of fal'Cie apparently, and in Cocoon, it's extremely bad news to interact with a fal'Cie from Pulse. In fact, being marked by a Pulse fal'Cie is a one-way ticket to banishment. Lightning is our main character in 13, and she and her friends get marked as l'Cie, meaning they are now on Cocoon's hit list, and they have to find a way to resist the government and save themselves, and possibly the entire human race at the same time. I can't really go into all the weirdness here, but if you have a few spare minutes, just try Googling the plot of Final Fantasy XIII. For one thing, it's the only game in the series to be so complicated it requires an in-game encyclopedia to actually make sense of it. But so much of the background information on things like the fal'Cie and the gods is so fascinating, and it's a shame the game has dealt with something of a bad reputation for so long. Though honestly, I think it's finally starting to see its time in the sun, and hopefully that means we'll be getting a remaster at some point in the near future. One quick note here, not sure if I need to mention this, but I will anyway. Inclusion on this list is not necessarily an endorsement of the game in question. To be fair, every other game so far I'm a big fan of and will definitely recommend you check out, but Conception 2 is, well, I don't really care for it very much. Particularly from a gameplay perspective, it just didn't speak to me. But if we're talking about games with unhinged stories, then yeah, I do kind of need to bring this one up. Conception 2 takes place in a world where the threat of demons is constant, and the people who can beat them are teenagers with a special mark on their hands. The main character is Wake, who is the most special boy, and he's able to enter demon lairs and use his powers to fight back. But he has to be trained. So he enrolls at a special magic school where he's asked to create star children with his female classmates. This is done through a ritual known as classmating, which is just an A+ portmanteau, really high quality stuff. I love it. Now, if your head is in the gutter right now, I don't blame you, because that's what they're wanting you to think. But really, They just have to touch each other, and these little star children are created inside a sort of Russian nesting doll. The star children are basically weapons that they can use to battle demons, which is pretty messed up if you think about it. So a bunch of teenagers are making babies for the express purpose of killing demonic creatures. Hey, I didn't say it was good. I just said it was unhinged. If you're a big fan of Conception 2 and you think I should give it another chance though, let me know down in the comments. It's hard to narrow down the list of Yoko Taro games and just choose one as unhinged, because the man is the walking definition of the word. You've seen the mask he wears in public, right? Well, actually, that mask got its origins here in the original Nier. Now, I've played Nier Gestalt, which is the original PlayStation 3 version of the game, but I don't have any footage of that, so you're seeing the remake based on the Japanese version of the game, Nier Replicant. Same story, but instead of a young dude main character, we had a gruff old guy. I'm partial to gruff old guy MCs, being a gruff old guy with real main character energy myself, but the young one's cool too, I guess. But anyway, Nier is bonkers. Set way far off in the future, Nier is the story of a boy trying to save his little sister from a devastating disease. Doesn't sound too strange on the surface, but it's all the details that make it absolutely bizarre. This world has been overrun by these shadow creatures called Shades, and while they're a constant threat, there are regular mundane trials to be overcome as well. The protagonist, and I should say I don't think the game ever explicitly calls him Nier, so I'm not sure that's even his name. But the protagonist is a jack-of-all-trades, odd-job sort of guy to make ends meet. One day, his little sister wanders out of the house, and he rushes off to save her, which causes him to meet Grimoire Weiss, a talking book. Which... okay. A bit odd. Yeah. Pretty soon he meets Kaine, a filthy-mouthed woman wearing lingerie as body armor, and Emil, a little boy afflicted with something akin to Medusaism, meaning he turns things to stone with his gaze. I really can't say too much more, because if you haven't played this yet, you absolutely should pick up Nier Replicant and do so. It's truly wild the places this story goes. It's deep, it's dark, it takes some of the wildest swings in game design I've ever seen. Like, one section of the story turns into a visual novel, and another one is like a top-down shooter. It's nuts. It's an A+ game, and especially if you're already a fan of Nier Automata but haven't played this one, this game laid the groundwork for that masterpiece, so definitely give it a play. Well, that's it. The 10 most unhinged stories I could think of in JRPGs. If I'm missing any, again, let me know, and maybe we'll get around to a part 2 one day. Thanks so much for watching, and thanks to everyone who subscribes. It really helps the channel. Oh, and check out my podcast, the JRPG Pursuit. We talk all about JRPGs every week, and we're coming up on our 100th episode really soon. So check out the link in the description. Anyway, until next time, take care.